Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my mid-July wrap-up. I'm taking part in two readathons. That is the All My Relations Summer Readathon, focusing on Indigenous Lit, and the Plus Size Readathon, focusing on plus size books, plus size rep books. And then I'm also trying to read a few more disability-oriented books because it is Disability Pride Month, because this is the month in which the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in the US. My makeup is inspired by the cover of Shipwrecked, because that is the group book for the plus size readathon, and one of the challenges is to do your makeup based on the cover. You can't see it very well when I'm facing head on, but these are supposed to be waves of water coming off of my eyes because they're shipwrecked on an island. At least they're playing characters who are shipwrecked on an island in the book. So I'm going to start with a non-readathon or themed read that I just got reminded of the existence of and decided to get from the library, which is Painted Devils. I was very excited about it because I really loved Little Thieves. This one really delivered. We have a mystery because that is apparently the sort of thing we're going to do in this series, where something magical and to do with low gods is going on and we have to solve it because they are causing trouble for people, and our main character and the boy she loves are involved in it. This also continues the romance that was started in the first book, and it was so ridiculously sweet. One of the side characters says, "You two are going to rot my teeth," and I think that's a pretty accurate description. I enjoyed it so much, and the mystery was fun as well. Plus we got to meet a bunch of new characters as well as bringing back some of my favorite characters. I really like the demisexual rep because both our main character and her love interest are demisexual. They both have some self-esteem issues, but especially our main character, Vanya. And I really liked how she worked those out. And I think that although they had some miscommunication troubles, ultimately their communication was very good between the two main characters. I would call it a soft magic system where things aren't explained all that much, and even the characters themselves don't totally understand what the limits of what magic can and cannot do are, and I gave it 4 stars. Now the spoilery section. This is heavy on specific spoilers for the end of Painted Devils. I will put a time code that you can skip to. I had to take a star off in the end because the ending, what the F was that? I listened to the last bit of it before I was planning on taking a nap for the day because I was like, oh, this will be a nice relaxing wrap up of this book. Like the last book ended in a fairly happy place, so this will be great. Now then I'll just go to sleep. No, it frustrated me so much that I then couldn't sleep and got really tired later in the day because I didn't get the sleep that I wanted to. And I've been thinking about it quite a lot for the last couple of days, very irritatedly, and now I'm frustratedly waiting for the next book because Vanya pulls a 3rd act breakup at the end of the book instead of at the 3/4 point, because it's kind of at the 3/4 point because we're in the end of the 2nd book, so we're at the like 2/3 point of the ultimate story, which I'm pretty sure is going to be a trilogy. But the thing is, if you're going to have multiple books about the same couple, and it's not just them pining about each other until the end of the first, if they're a couple through the first couple of books, don't make them break up at the end of the book as a cliffhanger type thing. Books like the ones by J.D. Robb are all about the same couple, and they have tumultuous times and problems, but they work them out within the book, so you don't have to wait for the next book to get unfrustrated with the relationship. Basically, Vanya pulls a I'm not good enough for you and my being in your life will ultimately harm your life, and I'm gonna make a unilateral decision about that to leave you, because basically I still haven't sorted out my crap. And yeah, that's just, it's very upsetting when things have been going so well for the rest of the book and they were doing so well with their communicating, and then she just flips her lid and runs off into the night. I would like to be happily waiting for the next book, but I am now frustratedly waiting for the next book. Okay, next let's do my plus size rep reads. First we have The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert. I'm pretty sure my library newly added this to their collection because it's part of Talia Hibbert's backlog that I hadn't read yet. So I listened to it on audiobook, and I only gave it 3 stars because it was just kind of meh. It didn't have the banter that Talia Hibbert is so excellent at. It did have characters with emotional issues that they needed to work through, and I really liked how that was done. I really liked how important their relationships with their parents were. Yeah, I like the emphasis on how important it is to work out your issues if you want to have a healthy, or at least address your issues if you want to have a healthy romantic relationship, or a healthy, any kind of really close relationship. And this one was told maybe 30% of it in flashbacks, because this is about best friends who've known each other since college who having to be roommates temporarily because her room gets flooded. And he's been in love with her for 7 years, and she's kind of been in love with him for the same amount of time, but she's in denial about it because she is someone who heavily avoids relational intimacy because she got hurt really bad by her mom. And so it's about them trying to figure out, can they be friends with benefits? What are we gonna do about all these feelings and this attraction and wanting to still be friends, and we're not willing to give up the friendship part just because we can't have the sexual and or romantic part. And I really liked how the man MC did not bemoan his friendship zone status and didn't treat it like that, and didn't treat like being a friend was a second best, or like he was just waiting to try to get with her romantically. Like, he really valued her friendship, and I think that that part was well done. But it just didn't really speak to me the way that Talia Hibbert's books tend to, so only 3 stars. Then All the Feels by Olivia Dade. So this is the second in the spoiler alert series that comes before Shipwrecked. I'm basically reading them in reverse order because now I'm going to read spoiler alert. And I really like this. The male MC also has ADHD, and I think that that was portrayed really well. Medication taking was portrayed well. This is about a celebrity on the same TV show that the Shipwrecked people are on, who gets assigned a handler because he is having too many publicity issues, and his handler is supposed to make him behave in public. And so they fall in love, and it's really cute and really sweet. And I think the third act breakup made a lot of sense in this book. Sometimes they feel really manufactured, but I think that this one made sense based on both of them having unresolved and mostly unaddressed at all neuroses. Those sort of exploded into each other. I ultimately really liked how they're both having self-esteem issues was handled. So I gave All the Feels 4.5 stars. Then Sing Anyway by Anita Kelly. This is a novella, and it takes place in a queer karaoke bar mostly, and it is about someone who usually comes with their friends. Their friends don't show up one night, so they get kind of adopted into another circle of friends that always comes to the same queer bar, and they get to watch their karaoke crush sing, and their karaoke crush also thinks that they are attractive, and they hit it off, and it's really adorable. Yeah, ultimately really sweet, and the non-binary MC gives autistic vibes, so I really enjoyed that and gave me the feels, as books with autistic MCs falling in love tend to give me the feels. So I gave Sing Anyway 4.5 stars as well. Then for 2 different readathons, Walking in Two Worlds by Bob Canoe is by an indigenous author about an Anishinaabe character who spends a lot of her time in a virtual world and is actually able to make real money off of it, and creates lots of indigenous inspired creatures, and kind of uses her knowledge of her culture to sort of bring that into the virtual world. And she's kind of a hero in this virtual world because she is one of the few women who are able to stand up to this group of alt-right men's rights activists who like to make the world, the virtual world, very inhospitable for any women gamers. And so she meets in real life someone who is a member of this men's rights activist group and befriends him, and it is about that friendship. It is about walking into the two worlds and bringing what's in the real world into the virtual world, and being creative and making things. And just because they're virtual doesn't mean they aren't real. It's also about her family, and it's about the sexism she faces in real life as well as in the virtual world. And it talks a lot about how MRA groups prey on vulnerable young men who have been hurt and convince them to turn that hurt into hate for women and various minority groups, instead of you know, processing the trauma and fighting against whatever actually caused the trauma, which in his case was mostly Islamophobia, the people in his home country of China being horrible to Islamic people, which his parents were and he was as a kid. Yeah, so it talks a lot about all sorts of things like that. And there were a lot of frustrating parts, but also really a lot of good parts, and I really loved the video game portions, or the virtual reality portions. So I ultimately gave Walking into Worlds 4 stars. And our main character is fat in real life, but she portrays herself as thin in VR, and it kind of deals with that issue and with self-esteem resulting from it, and from fat phobia in the real world and online. And it did a relatively good job. I don't think it did a perfect job. I think it could have had less of, oh, you're not fat, and more of, there's nothing wrong with being fat as a conversation. But it was a conversation that at least was had to an extent. And I think it's something that would definitely come up if people were constantly looking at people's virtual reality version of themselves rather than their actual selves. That conversation was had to an extent. I feel like it could have been had in more depth and a little bit better. Then also for the All My Relations readathon, for the prompt sunset or sunrise colors and for has illustrations, I have Kape Mahu by Hinale Moana Wankalu, Dean Hammer, and Jill Wilson, and illustrated by Daniel Sousa. This is about how healers came to one of the Hawaiian islands from over the sea, and they were neither man nor woman but both, and how monuments were put up for them via rocks that were brought onto the beach. And it talks a bit about how these rocks were covered over by the tourist industry and then have since been recovered. And yeah, really interesting, a story that I had not heard. And it is also told in an indigenous Hawaiian language and also in English. There's a nice long note at the back about preserving indigenous language and preserving this history and making sure that it's told. So really informative, and I think lots of people should read it. Then The Woman in the Woods and Other North American Stories, and this is written, each story by different people, so there are a bunch of different illustration styles and also narrative styles, and I really enjoyed them. I had heard maybe one of these stories before, but was unfamiliar with most of them, and yeah, I had a really good time. I read this in maybe 2 sittings, and the time really flew by, and enjoying all the different styles going on. Plus this cover is gorgeous, and it goes really good with my makeup too. Then for Disability Pride Month, we have I Am Not a Label, 34 Disabled Artists, Thinkers, Athletes, and Activists from Past and Present by Carrie Burnell. This has quite a few people I have heard of, like Stevie Wonder, Lady Gaga, Frida Kahlo, but like Frida Kahlo and Lady Gaga, I didn't know they were disabled. And it also has a lot of people who I had never heard of. It has Naoki Higashida, who wrote The Reason I Jump, which I read maybe last year. And yeah, lots of really interesting people. Temple Grandin's in here, who, by the way, you might want to be aware, has said some derogatory things about high support needs autistic people. So take what she says with a grain of salt. And yeah, it shows that disabled people have all sorts of different lives and do all sorts of different things, and that we have a lot of history to be proud of. Then we have Our Work is Everywhere, an illustrated oral history of queer and trans resistance, which has a very cool illustration style, and has like different color schemes for each interview, because most of it is done in interview format between the author and various activists. One thing that was kind of difficult is sometimes the writing is really squirrely and wiggly, so it's actually kind of hard to read sometimes. So I read it very slowly, but it was really interesting. There was lots of interviews with Black queer people and Indigenous queer people, and sex workers, and activists, and quite a few disabled people as well. Yeah, and actually gave me quite a bit of hope, because a lot of it is about people who are doing on the ground work, like mutual aid for people, or harm reduction centers, or teaching people how to grow their own food, running crisis help centers, all sorts of things like that. So it makes me feel like there are people out there doing the things that need to be done, and everything isn't as hopeless, and we aren't as alone as sometimes it feels like we are. And there's so many different ways to be of help to other queer people. So yeah, I really love that one. 5 stars. 5 stars to the last 3 books, actually. Then lastly, I listened to audiobook of A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe. This was a leftover of one that I started during Pride Month. And I should have DNF'd it, honestly. I was not feeling it at about 50%, but I fell for the sunk cost fallacy. I've already spent 3 hours listening to this. I should spend the other 3 hours finishing it. But it is about a young queer woman figuring out that she is queer over a summer with her grandma, where she gets a crush on her grandma's gardener, who has a girlfriend. And instead of just being like, I will crush from afar, she pursues her, and ultimately makes a lot of bad decisions that and then is surprised when there are consequences for her bad decisions. She's 18 years old, by the way, not 16, so I did judge her quite a bit. But it's not a romance, it's a story about queer awakening and being a messy 18-year-old. And I really liked her relationship with her grandma, and how she was going through her grandpa's old files and rediscovered and kind of made a relationship with who her grandpa was before he died. So I didn't enjoy kind of big parts of it, but there were parts that I did enjoy, so I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. And that is all I have to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about the wave emoji? And I'd love to know how your July is going so far. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!